Nolan Ryan.
Nolan Ryan? Oh, that one from the estate sale. It looked like either a kid with a ball-peen hammer had found it and beat it to death, or it was left out in a hailstorm.
We sold it as is. I just had a feeling that it would sell, and it was kind of sold as like a mystery pack. Like, you're getting this pack of... Hi, and welcome to our What Sold video for October 6th through 12th, where we're going to go over every item that we sold across multiple reselling platforms. And let's dive in and find out what we sold. All right, the first thing that we sold was a 1.5 inch metal and enamel double-sided Our Lady of Guadalupe Virgin and Child pendant. This was actually found in a storage unit that we had purchased, and there was a bunch of jewelry in this unit. We paid 28 cents per item, and this sold for $13. Next up was an Etsy sale. This was two actually Francoma pottery prairie green serving platters. One of them was shaped like a leaf, and I don't remember what the other one was shaped like. Yeah, they were kind of small,
just a
little
platter,
platters.
I think.
We got an excellent deal on all of this Francoma at a garage sale. We paid $10 for all of it. That broke down to just 75 cents per item or per listing. This set of platters sold for $47.99, and that was on Etsy.
We made a lot off of that.
We have. Next up was a 30-pack of Memorex Slimline multicolor CD or DVD jewel cases. Most of these were actually gifted to us from friends and family, but some of them I think we got either at a thrift store or out of the Goodwill bins, and we were all in on these for 54 cents. So these sold for $17.18. Next up was an item that came out of the mystery boxes. If you have not seen that video, I will link it in the description box below. But basically, we purchased a bunch of mystery boxes, mostly off of Facebook Marketplace, just to see what we would get. And this is one of the items that we got. This was a Linens and Things, which is out of business, so it must be vintage. It was a really fancy, like, bartending set of stainless steel funnels. And we had paid $6.88 for each of the items out of this particular mystery box. And these sold really fast for $19.98. So we made a little bit of money on that.
Surprisingly.
And made our money back from the fun of purchasing it. Next up was an Inspiring Hymns church hymnal. This was from 1951. We got it at an estate sale for 50 cents, and it sold for $11.98.
Isn't that the one we got the really good? Isn't that the one we got the really good feedback on?
Yeah, it was really, really positive feedback. Next up was another hymnal. This was a Baptist hymnal, and it was from 1956.
It was from the same estate sale.
From the same estate sale, we paid 50 cents for it. This one sold for $19.99. Next up was a vintage lot of 3 Amway lapel pins. These were actually his mom's, and she gave them to us to sell. We had no cost. They sold for $11. Next up was a 1989 Score Baseball Sandy Alomar card. This was Kevin's, and it sold for $2.59. Next up was a pair of J. Crew Bluetooth earmuffs. So they were earmuffs that had headphones in them. I thought that these would sell really fast, and they took like 2 or 3 years to sell. It was pretty crazy.
It was a bad purchase.
We got these at the Salvation Army for $8.12.
For a lot.
And they finally sold for $21.
But we somehow cleared a profit on it, and we got rid of them. And they took up like it was like a hat box, pretty much.
I just knew those things would sell
space.
so much faster, and they didn't.
It seemed good.
Yeah, it did. Next up was a vintage pair of striped gloves by the brand Novo.
Those things were so cute.
They were really cute. They were very like, who's the actress? They were very Audrey Hepburn-y looking.
They were adorable. Yeah. I liked those gloves a lot. I remember shipping them like, oh, these are really nice.
Where am I? We got those at an estate sale for $1, and they sold only for $11.18. But
we got really good feedback on those too. They were very happy.
Yeah, they should be. They were the cutest things. Okay, next up was a pre-calculus textbook from 2015. We got this at the thrift store for $2.16, and it sold for $17.
I swear I was reading her spreadsheet, and pre-calculus looked like
That's
Prescialicious.
what
I thought it was Prescialicious
that.
by Jay Abrams. Like, what? Prescialicious?
Yeah, I almost said that.
What's a Prescialicious?
Next up was a vintage 1995 Barbie Sparkle Beach Fashions dress. This was gifted to us from the Barbie bag, and it sold for $11. Next up was a Radio Shack Black Digital AM/FM pocket radio. We got this on our Goodwill bins across Texas trip. That is going to be upcoming in about a week, so stay tuned for that series that's going to be dropping. We got this for $2.03 at one of the Houston bins, and it sold very fast for $55.
Of which they have 5 bins.
Yeah.
5.
We have 5 bins in Houston.
It is a big city.
It is.
It's a big city.
Next up was a 1992 Score Baseball Cal Ripken Jr. card. This was Kevin's. It sold for $2.29. Next up was a vintage Mesmerized Gold USA women's brown velvet leopard print coat.
That was a nice coat too.
We got this at an estate sale for $8 and it sold for $43.99. Next up was someone who came in and purchased a bunch of separate listings of pantyhose from us. They were all vintage pantyhose. It was a pair of Worthington pantyhose, 2 pair of South Discount pantyhose in orange and yellow, I think, and then a 3-pack of Evan Picone pantyhose. And those were all found at the Red, White, and Blue Thrift. We made a video about going to their grand opening, so we'll link that in the description box below. But we found a lot of good, mostly accessories there that have sold well.
Yeah, that was the best stuff we got there, was this kind of thing.
And this sold for $56.97. We had paid $4.80 for them.
That's good.
And vintage pantyhose can do really well, depending on what they are. Some of them sell for a lot.
Probably the bigger the better.
Yeah.
The more specialized the better.
And we actually have an entire garbage bag of vintage pantyhose upstairs.
Is that
we
what's
need
in
to get
there?
through.
I thought it was
Yeah.
shoes.
No, that's why I have all those
Whoa,
pantyhose set aside.
That's
Yeah.
much better.
Yeah.
That's small little values.
Next up was a Lululemon brand new with tags everywhere belt bag. I paid up for this because I knew it would sell fast, and also because I was like, if it doesn't sell, we'll just give it to Nina. We got this at an Austin thrift store, which is going to be part of our upcoming bins series. We paid $21.71 for it. It sold really fast for $39.
Yeah, we didn't eke much out of that, but it sold really fast.
Yeah, I just knew it would sell. Next up was a pair of youth size Crocs in a blue camouflage pattern. We got these at Houston. No, these might have come from the San Antonio bins.
I think those were San Antonio probably, because it was really cheap price.
Yeah, we paid 80 cents for them, and they sold really fast for $19.99. Next up was a 1989 Topps Mini Leaders baseball card for the player Nolan Ryan. Nolan Ryan. This was Kevin's, and it sold for $2.59. Next up was a vintage 8-pack of Ambassador baby shower invitations. We found these at the thrift store for $1.03, and they sold for $10.39. Next up was a vintage 1995 Bandai Gundam action figure. It was a model kit, and it was complete. We got this at a garage sale for $3, and it sold for $25 on Mercari. Next up was a set of 2 block crystal Riptide Blue Swirl champagne flutes. These were actually mine, and we just don't use fancy glasses like that, so I decided to sell them, and they were gifted to me a long time ago. They sold for $25. We actually still have more of these.
A lot
We
left.
do have a lot left.
If you would like some flutes.
We can hook you up. All right,
I'm surprised
next.
somebody only bought 2.
Yeah, maybe
Must
they
have just
were
been for a
replacing
special
broken
occasion or something. Or I was
Yeah.
thinking just for like a champagne night, 2 people and a champagne night kind of thing. I don't know.
Next up was a 6-ounce bottle of Claire Burke Christmas Memories Stovetop Simmering Oil. It was partially used. We got this at an estate sale for $4.32, and it sold for $29.99.
We got that at the angry estate sale. We go to lots of different estate sales. There's one company that are super nice and super helpful, and then there's other ones that are kind of like mid, and then there's one that's just really angry people sometimes. They just still seem to be happy to be there.
I think particularly the owner seems grumpy.
Yeah, but
all right, next up we're going to talk about something kind of personal, but I thought it would be interesting to share with you guys. Many of you know that we also have another business that Kevin works at on a daily basis. It's a custom picture frame shop, and then I also work part/half-time for a nonprofit consulting company. So reselling really is like our side hustle. But I wanted to, I guess, brag a little bit that we have really made reselling a significant part of our income and have managed to save up over $20,000 in our business reselling account. And for anybody who is thinking about getting into it part-time, it is something that you can use to really supplement your income. It's a great option for you. So I would encourage you to watch some videos and get out there and give it a shot if it's something that you're interested in, especially if you're very entrepreneurial minded. So I also wanted to share a little bit of how we pay ourselves out of our account, because I know that was a question that I had in the beginning when we really switched this over to a business. We have our business set up as an LLC, and we don't have an S Corp or anything like that. That is an option, and if you're considering setting up a new business to do reselling, I would definitely encourage that you speak to an accountant that specializes in reselling, because there are a lot of things to consider. But we have ours set up as an LLC, and every month we take the money that we earn from reselling. We take the net profit that it shows in our QuickBooks of how much we earned, and I divide that in half, and I leave 50% in our business as savings and as capital that we can use to purchase things, and then we take 50% of that and transfer it to ourselves as a payment. So that's how we do that. There are many different ways that you can do it. You definitely should leave capital in your account so that you have money to purchase things. The other reason why it is important to always leave some money in your account is that when you are a reseller, you have to pay self-employment taxes, and so we always hold some money back to pay taxes at the end of the year. So I would recommend that you definitely get with an accountant before you set up your business, before you set up your banking account and all of that. But I just wanted to give a little glimpse into how we actually pay ourselves and how we use this also as a way to save money for the future.
So we take a little money out and then we invest back in the business.
Exactly. All right, so I hope you found that helpful. If you did, make sure to hit that like button down below, and let's move on with what sold. Next up was a CD called The Year of Living Dangerously. This was gifted to us to sell. We had no cost, and it sold for $11.98. Next up was a DVD called We Ride by Train. This was actually a really specific movie or documentary about people who tag like train cars, graffiti on train cars, and that was specifically what it was about. So it was a really niche item. We got this at a garage sale for $1, and it sold for $33.
It was the honey sale.
Yep. Next up was a Pampered Chef julienne or vegetable potato peeler with a blade cover. This was a retired item from Pampered Chef. We got this at a thrift store out of like a random bag of items. I think it had like flatware and stuff like that in it. We paid 61 cents for it, and it sold for $12.99.
I was wondering why we would have picked up a potato peeler.
Yeah,
but
we didn't intentionally. Next up was a lot of die-cast metal and plastic tractor trailer trucks, and they did have some issues, so I had to read in the title. This was gifted to us to sell. We had no cost, and it sold for $15.98. Next up was a Hoover Professional Series Turbo Scrub Carpet Washer Accessory Bag.
This is the one I was talking about a couple of weeks ago that I got out of the bins.
We got this from the South Austin bins, and we paid $1.03 for the items that day, and it sold for $29.99.
It sold really fast.
It did. Next up was a Magic the Gathering card. This was one of Kevin's cards. It was called Enlightened Tutor, and it sold for $19.99.
If I remember, she's like this.
She was very enlightened. Yeah. Next up was a vintage lot of 2 Baby Einstein VHS tapes. We got this at the thrift store for 27 cents, and they sold for $11.50. Next up was a TomTom GPS navigator. We got this at a garage sale for $3. It sold for $26.39.
FYI, I just went to the thrift store. I haven't been in quite a while, and the VHS section is pitiful now.
Yeah.
There's like
I don't think they're
25
really
tapes.
They're
like
focused mostly on DVDs.
They've got tons of DVDs, several Blu-rays, but the VHS is dwindling.
Yeah, so our little honey hole dried up. Next up was a 2005 Coughlins. Is that how you would say that?
I would probably say Coughlin.
Coughlins. This was a 4-piece set of tablecloth weights in the shapes of lemons.
Oh, the lemons, yeah.
We got this at the thrift
It's the
store
same
for
thrift store,
$1.08, and they sold for $15.99. Next up was a vintage to modern 15-piece lot of Barbie and clone doll clothing. It was all pants and shorts, and a lot of them had flaws and needed some TLC, so we included that right in the title. These were from the Barbie bag. We had no cost. They sold for $9.68. Next up was a vintage Department 56 set of 3 Snow Village Caroling family figurines. These were also gifted to us. We had no cost, and they sold for $19.99. Next up was a women's pair of Chico's corduroy pants. We sold these for $26.99, and this was also gifted to us. We are very lucky. We have family that gives us a lot of things.
And we
to
listed
sell.
all this stuff like right in a row.
Yeah,
that's why
part of
it's
the
all
reason.
sold right in a row as well.
Yeah. Next up was a pair of cut from the cloth women's stretch denim jeans. These were from a garage sale for $2, and they sold for $20 even. Next up was a pair of men's True Nation black flat front straight leg denim jeans. These were gifted to us to sell big sizes, even if they are a lesser sought after brand. It was size 50 by 38.
Oh, that is a big one.
So even if it's a lower price brand, if it's a really big size, a hard to find size, they will sell. So these sold for $29.99. Next up was a rainbow vacuum. This was a vintage one, and it had seen some vacuuming.
Oh, that one from the estate sale. It looked like either a kid with a ball peen hammer had found it and beat it to death, or it was left out in a hailstorm.
Yeah.
It was rough.
It was
rough. Had pieces broken off.
It worked.
Nobody cared.
And people will always buy rainbow vacuum and rainbow vacuum parts. So that's something to be on the lookout for. We paid $37.50 for this, and it sold fast for $174.99. Next up was a 1989 Donruss baseball card for the player Nolan Ryan. This was Kevin's, and it sold for $2.39. Next up was one of the Travis Matthew women's golf shirts from the Charles Schwab Challenge. We found a whole bunch of these at the Goodwill bins in Fort Worth, and they have been moving very slowly for some reason. This one sold for $15.19, and we had paid 67 cents for that.
This one went to the same person who bought the last one.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So they have
really
two
liked
of them
it.
now. Yeah.
Or maybe they're reselling them. I don't know, but that's fine. You can buy all of them if you want to.
Take them.
Next up was a pair of women's waterproof suede sneaker boots by the brand Blondo. We actually got these doing retail arbitrage at Marshall's. We got them on clearance for $18.40, and they sold for $51 on Mercari. And yeah, that's like one of very few Mercari sales that we're getting lately.
Very few retail arbitrage. We do
we're very bad at it.
Very little.
We're not good at it.
Very little.
Next up was a cardigan sweater by the brand Camille La Vie. This was gifted to us to sell, and we had no cost. It sold for $24.99. Next up was a Gardens of the Moon Book 1 by Steven Erickson. This was a paperback fantasy book that we found in the Austin Goodwill bins. We found a bunch
of sci-fi
of fantasy and
fantasy.
sci-fi books. This one we paid $1.03 for, and it sold for $24.99. Next up was a 2009 pillow pet of a panda. We got this at, which Goodwill bins did we get this one? I think this one might have been one of the Houston ones.
Yeah, I think it was one of the Houston ones.
So we paid $1.60 for this pillow pet, and it sold for $29.99.
Very quickly.
Yeah.
Anything from that trip was very quickly because it hasn't been all that long.
It hasn't been. Yeah, we just listed all this stuff. Next up was the brand was Craftsman, but not like Sears Craftsman.
Not the tools.
Yeah, not the tools.
Craftsman.
This was a fine English pewter 4-inch baseball embossed hip flask. This was Kevin's, and it was gifted to him a long time ago.
Somebody gave me that because I was really into baseball. Like I watched it every day, all the time. And so somebody gave me that in college. I can't remember who, but it was worth something.
Sold for $39.99.
I always thought it was kind of worthless, like just a cheap little thing they gave me, but apparently they gave me a really nice gift. Thanks.
Next up was a vintage Fun World Black Cat pumpkin Halloween brooch. We got this at an estate sale for 25 cents, actually the same one where we got the rainbow vacuum, and this sold for $10 even. Next up was an item that we got out of the San Antonio Goodwill bins. I saw in the bin that there was a bunch of like brochures and catalog listings and paperwork from a company that sold dried insects and butterflies called the Butterfly Company. And then I found a little bag of dried insects. It had a beetle in there that was really crushed. He was beyond.
His legs were all off and everything.
But inside that, folded up in like some kind of wax paper or something, there were multiple butterflies that looked undamaged. We did not open the packaging to see. We sold it as is. I just had a feeling that it would sell. And it was kind of sold as like a mystery pack. Like you're getting this pack of dried insects plus all of the brochures and paperwork that went with it. It was vintage from, it looked like maybe the 80s. And it sold actually pretty fast. We had paid 87 cents for it, and it sold for $31.29.
Can't believe we made 20 bucks on that.
Yeah, I mean,
really
other
can't.
people probably just thought it was garbage. And I just had a feeling about it. Okay, so that wraps up all of our sales for this week, and we will go over the totals now. We sold 47 items for an average sale price of $25.60.
Those are both about standard.
Our sales totaled $1,203.38, and that made for a net profit of $605.18.
So less than last week, but that's still a good week.
We have been really consistently listing at least 10 items a day. And we've just really been focused a lot more on our reselling business than we were earlier in the year because we've had more time to focus on it. And we are definitely seeing the payoff.
We're tired. We have a bunch of stuff in our living room and a bunch of stuff everywhere. So we're tired of seeing it. We're trying to make some room.
It's, that's the dirty little secret of any reseller out there is your death pile creeps into your daily living sometimes, and we're wanting to clear it out.
So we're listing a lot every day, and we're making quite a lot of progress the past week or two.
Definitely, and we have definitely seen the results in our sales. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please let us and YouTube know by hitting that subscribe, like, and share button, and leave a comment below with a little diamond emoji because that's our signature emoji. All right, hope you guys enjoyed it, and we will catch you on the flip side.